Now we turn to an important topic for the entire state, education. Improving education was front and center in Governor Snyder's State of the State address, plus a coalition of city leaders will deliver a report to the governor next month with recommendations on improving Detroit schools. The governor's education advisor, Paul Pastorek, spoke at today's policy conference, and he joins us now on MiWeek. Paul, it's good to see you and welcome to MiWeek.
Thank you.
For many people in education circles, you are very well known. You were instrumental in turning around the New Orleans school district, but for people in Michigan may not be so familiar with your work. Can you talk a little bit about what you were able to achieve in New Orleans and then what you're doing now here in Michigan and advising where our school system is headed?
Surely. Well, you know, in Louisiana we had Katrina, which really upset our apple cart in the city of New Orleans, and so it was an opportunity to do something dramatically different. New Orleans was in very serious difficulty academically, the city schools were, and the governor saw it as a real opportunity to radically revamp the institutions that delivered education. She asked me if I would serve to be a part of this radical new approach, and I said yes, because the approach was not, it made a lot of sense to me. The approach was to give principals more authority to manage their school buildings and empower teachers to be able to deliver the quality of services to kids. So that has proven to be a winning formula in New Orleans, and it's proven to be copied by some others around the country, and we're very proud of it. We have a long way to go still. We're not nearly where we need to be, but we've made tremendous progress.
But bottom line is that all of the schools are charter schools now in the city of New Orleans, almost all of them?
Almost all of them are. About 92% are charter schools.
And you have improving scores in terms of grade level, and you also have improving in terms of graduation rates, but you say they're still not exactly where they need to be.
Yeah, you know, our graduation rates were in the 50s, now they're in the high 70s. Kids who start 9th grade and end 12th grade on time, but we know we need to do better than that. Our special ed kids, which were really lagging, are significantly improving now, but still have a ways to go. So we're very proud of the progress we've made, and it's been more than the ordinary progress that other cities have made, but we still have a long way to go.
So what parts of that make sense to you when you're looking at Detroit and other urban school districts here? Because to be honest, there are a lot of people who are very critical of what's going on in New Orleans nationally. The unions don't like it. People have looked at the progress and said, hey, over 10 years, it's okay, but it's not a model to take and put in other districts. Which parts, though, of what you're doing in New Orleans do you think would make sense in a place like Detroit?
Well, you know, the people who do the critiques on New Orleans are good and well-intentioned people, but at the end of the day, I think if you look at the numbers, you know, you'll find that there's a great deal of progress and a great deal of support, and so much support that we have states like Tennessee and Georgia and Nevada now that are looking to mimic what we're doing.
Doing the same kinds of things.
Doing the same kinds of things. I think the key here is, and this is not rocket science, and this is not, you know, evil kind of stuff. I mean, why not make principals really be the leaders of the school buildings that they run? And if a principal does a really good job at that, why not give that person more schools to run? And for those who don't, then let's remove them and let's put in quality people who
But
can.
Paul, wasn't that the same theory behind the EAA, the emergency district that the governor formed? And we're now 2.5 years later getting rid of most of the principals that were hired. Getting a good principal in place isn't as easy as you make it sound, is it?
Well, you know, the model that we have here in Michigan with an emergency manager is more of a financial model. And I have been encouraging the governor to look at bringing a strong educational component in. It's not just about cutting the budget and getting fiscal currency right, but it's about putting an education plan together which will be successful, which will lead to these kinds of fiscal cuts.
we keep hearing that Detroit is going to move toward a portfolio model. What does that mean, and does it mean an end to the Detroit Public Schools as an institution?
So a portfolio model does not mean that Detroit Public Schools ends as an institution, but what it does mean is that whichever the agency is that oversees a group of schools, like Detroit Public Schools or like university authorizers, those have to become effective, they have to become lean, they have to become not operators of schools where they command and control from above, but where they empower schools to deliver the success to kids. And when the DPS begins to really empower the principals and leaders to make decisions around finance, around curriculum and instruction, then we're going to see, I think, a lot of progress, and we're seeing that happen in other places in the country.
All right, so you have been consulting here in Michigan since the summertime, and the Broad Foundation is actually paying for you to be here in the state. Who have you been talking to? What have been some of your, I guess, most productive meetings? I can only assume that you've been doing a lot of listening. When can we see maybe some recommendations coming from you and coming out of the governor's office?
Yeah, we have done some remarkable conversations with people. I've met with the Superintendent's Association, many urban environments around the state, because the governor is not solely focused on Detroit. He's focused on urban challenges all across the state. So just yesterday I met with representatives of multiple superintendents. There are other urban environments that are challenged. You know, I've been able to talk to community leaders, philanthropy, business people, the chamber as I'm here today. And you know, I think that people want what is right for the kids here in Detroit, but the challenge is to let go of some of the past institutions that we have and look for new institutions that are going to be 21st century focused, really focused, kids-based and not adult-based. And I think when we do that, we'll see much better things coming.
Is there a danger or a fear, though, that people in the community feel that maybe they won't be part of those decisions that are being made about their schools?
It's natural for people to have anxiety when there's a lot of change. And so we will see that there will be people, all kinds of adults, who will see some sort of anxiety in this. That's normal and natural. But what the new effort that the coalition puts forth and the governor comes to agreement on, and others around the state come to support, that's going to have to be mindful of the community. It's going to have to bring heavy engagement from the community, so the community understands that change does not mean bad, change means good.
What are some of the things that didn't work that you tried in New Orleans that you've learned and said, hey, we won't do that again, or we certainly won't try to export that to other cities?
You know, I think the pace of change is very important, and holding standards very high. So when you go to a school that is not doing well and you want to replace the operator of that school, a principal or a group of people or a charter, it could be one of any of those, you have to be very thoughtful and careful about who you allow to come in and to run that operation.
Now
that requires a lot of care.
And so have you seen...
We can improve based on that.
Seen instances in New Orleans where you brought the wrong person?
Yes, we have. We've made mistakes along the way.
Yeah.
Now, you have to take risks, but
sure,
you want to minimize those risks, but you want to try and reduce that as much as you can.
Last question, Nolan.
Okay, so you said portfolio models are in place and around the country now. What governance model works best with a portfolio system?
Well, I think the key is to try to depoliticize the environment around the running of schools. And oftentimes it gets into a big adult game where people argue about whose adult rights are going to be abridged in the course of schooling. And we've got to remember the primary focus of schooling is to educate kids and elevate those rights. And I think when we do, we find success.
All right, Paul Pastorek, thanks so much for joining us. We look forward to hearing more at the end of March.
Thank you very much.